podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Welcome to the Cardiff Central Podcast.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Cardiff Central Podcast. As ever in the hot seat, it's me, Harley. I am joined by, and he has asked me to call him this, Sport in Wales journalist Carwyn and Harley. How are you doing, Carwyn?
Yeah, not too bad. Have to have that before my title now. I think that's the new thing because, cat's out of the bag. I just started that job at the start of the month, and finally got the first magazine into print. I think as of today. So happily through that process.
Excellent stuff, and I'm very delighted to say we've got a new co-host onto the pod. So. You may know him from some fantastic team sheets, some excellent tweets. Dan Pearce of Cardiff Rugby Life, Cardiff Rugby blog. There was a pod a while ago, but how are you doing, Dan?
Yeah, good. Nice to be back in the podcasting arena, but with less editing to do. So I can just sit here and waffle for an hour on a Wednesday night, and then feet up. It's living the dream.
Oh, it's great. Even though I don't have to do the editing, we leave that to Lee. I outsource. Instead of going east, we outsource our stuff west. So just sort of something that I had to go through on my first episode here as well. Just a little. Just want to let the listeners who probably already know you anyway, but just sort of for those who don't, just give a little brief update. Your time in rugby. Did you play a bit? What drew you to the Blue and Blacks?
Yeah, so not particularly rugby family. My uncle played a bit professionally back in the late 90s for Bridgend and Aberavon and Bristol. But my old man was much more of a football guy. It wasn't until I got to secondary school, really. So I grew up in Pentwyn, Pompeii in Cardiff, and it's not a massive rugby area. There's not any sort of local clubs there or anything. But I went to St. Tyler's then. One of our PE teachers was Rhys James, who was a hooker for the Rags and played a couple of times for the first during international breaks and that sort of thing. So he got us into playing rugby a bit. So played a bit with him in school. And then a few mates were, Cardiff Blues as we were then, fans. So I started going down to Arms Park with them. At the time, was Cardiff City season ticket holder, but stopped when that whole Red and Malaysia stuff kicked off, and that the club sort of drifted away from what it was. And picked up a Cardiff Blues season ticket, probably... would that have been 2010, 11, somewhere around there? And sort of 14 years of slogging later, here we are.
Yeah, excellent stuff. Anything you want to ask Dan, Carwyn? I said this is probably the first time you two have met, albeit virtually.
I was just surprised St. Tyler's had a rugby team because when I played against them, they were rubbish. But that's.
I mean, we had a rugby team, but I can't say we were any good.
Sounds like just the sort of team I need now. I'm up in Wales more often.
It was 15 footballers running around just trying to pretend like we knew what we were doing.
See, we used to get the opposite thing where we used to be 15 rugby players trying to play 11-a-side football. So I think that was a bit of a problem for us. But our training for football tended to be inside a gym hall playing full contact rugby just beforehand. So make of that what you will with the benches either side and certain players enjoying making big hits.
Sounds like the reason why I got banned from playing football with all the guys in school. Like, no, you keep thinking you're playing rugby. No, off you go. So shall we get into? So there's not really much news. I suppose the big bit of news is with the Rags and Steve Law announcing he's going to leave at the end of the season. I mean, I said you two have probably followed the Rags a bit more closely than I have. I mean, I've only sort of started following it a little bit more in the last season or two. But I mean, since he's come in, we've had a lot of success under him. Seems a very well regarded coach. What are your two thoughts?
I think he's done a fantastic job in 6 years this summer, and the job has been a really tough one, I think, because you've got some teams in the league, sort of Aberavons and Merthers, who are sort of fully focused on winning. You know, it's quite a high wage bill, it's good players, not much in the way of academy players there. And then you've got other teams like sort of Swansea, I'd put in that bracket, and maybe Newport to an extent, who are a bit more fully development teams. You know, they got a lot of Ospreys or Dragons players in there. Whereas with the Rags, they've sort of tried to strike the political balance in the respect that obviously there's the development aspect with being Cardiff Rugby second team, but also the Athletic Club Committee are quite keen on them winning as well, not just being a development side. So I think for Spot to strike that balance between getting the development right and the amount of players we've seen come out of there over the last 6 years, but also, you know, I think it's 2 Welsh Cups, 1 Premiership title, probably would have been another Premiership and a Welsh Cup before COVID, and then last season's top of the Premiership and no trophy. That's an amazing 6 years, and it's the players that he's brought through or helped to bring through with Griff Rhys from the academy, but also I think his particular sort of area of expertise is the sort of talent identification from the other semi-professional or community game, the lads that we've picked up from where he came from Bedwas and from the local Cardiff clubs. There's been a lot of players that have come from the sort of lower leagues and become quite established Premiership players. So yeah, he's done a cracking job. I think it's a shame to see him go, but probably the right time for both parties with the EDC coming in and maybe a slight change again in focus, slightly more towards the development side of it with this new competition. And I don't know exactly what his plans. It wouldn't massively surprise me to see him end up at a Merthyr or somewhere next season as they retain their independence and push on still at the top of the community game. But I think he goes with the well wishes of pretty much everybody who's watched the Rags for the last 6 years, certainly.
Yeah, I echo that, to be honest. I think the biggest praise you can give is Cardiff's performance this season. You know, it's not the performance of last season, but the squad compared to last season has been decimated. You know, and that's not just players that have been called up to the regional side. You know, your Alex Manns, your Mackenzie Martins, your Cam Winnets, they were all playing last season, but also they lost a bunch of players who didn't get the contract, so then left to go abroad, possibly to England. Some went to Jersey, I think, and in the process, but also to other clubs in England as well. So he's done a good job this season. I'm impressed to see Cardiff there, because I remember at the start of the season speaking to them, and they weren't that comfortable. They were thinking it's going to be a tough season because Llandovery was strong still, and Newport looked like they were getting their act together, and obviously Pontypool were brilliant at the start of the season, and Pontypridd were expected to be really strong as well. But I think Cardiff I think they're still 4th, aren't they? So to still be in that position is a brilliant performance so far this season, and still in with the chance, obviously, of the trophy at the end with the playoffs.
And just to bring a slight rumour about replacements, I think that the natural suggestion would have been that one of Dan Fish or Craig Everett or both take over. But an interesting name I heard in the week was Josh Turnbull as a potential. I don't think he's particularly hidden that he plans to sort of call it a day at the end of the season. He's obviously been doing a lot of coaching, the Newcastle Emlyn, Cardiff Vale College. I think he's assistant at Carmarthen at the moment. But be an interesting one if he was to slot in as head coach under Griff as director of rugby there in this new sort of development era, certainly.
Yeah, that is that's one of the worst kept secrets that Josh Turnbull might end his career at the end of the season by saying, "Oh, this might be my final game at home this season, about 6 games from the end of the season, so on live on TV." So I think it's safe to say it's unlikely to see him continue past the season.
That does lead me into a couple of listeners' questions, actually, with both those things you've mentioned. But I thought I'll go with the first one. So this is from Facebook, from Robin Rich. And he went, do we think the EDC is the right way forward for the club as a whole? For me personally, I think if we're treating the Rags as a development team and using it purposely for development, probably right. I think the W's probably gone about it a bit of a cack-handed way, but also it's the WRU. What do you expect? What are your thoughts?
I mean, I'm generally of the opinion that there is the only way to actually bridge the gap between the semi-pro and the pro game is A teams, and so until they properly invest in that sort of thing, then that gap will never be fully bridged. But I mean, fewer teams, higher quality. I've read the EDC sort of brief outline that they put together for it. They're trying to get it in the right area in terms of professionalizing a bit more. I think ultimately, particularly for the first 2 years, it'll just be the Premiership again, but with like one or two less teams, and everybody will have sort of the same squad, and it'll be pretty much the same teams at the top and the same teams at the bottom. But medium term, it probably is the right direction of travel for that level. But I hope that eventually the aim is either to introduce a cross-border element to that competition and drive the standards up that way, either go back to the Scots as they were planning to, or the sort of Celtic countries and produce a competition that way, or with the championship. But it might get there eventually. It's I can sort of see the thinking behind it, but I think sort of execution-wise, it might just end up being Premiership light for a few years, certainly.
Yeah, when I heard the initial plan in August, I was actually quite for it. I thought it made sense. I thought I understood the system. I must be honest, everything that's happened since hasn't filled me with great excitement. The lack of transparency a bit, the obviously difficulties with the clubs and the situation with Cardiff only having at best one club in there. And that uncertainty level hasn't filled me with joy, I must be honest. But the other concern I do have is ring fencing. I've never been a big fan of ring fencing leagues, but it should help to the development element. I can understand why they've ring fenced it in their heads is that teams at the bottom of the league will be they won't be discouraged to play youngsters at the end of the season. If there's no trepidation, they'll still want to play the youngsters. But trepidation brings good performances from players, and players playing under pressure, diamonds made under pressure, and all those cliched sayings. But that is factually correct. That players perform well when they're under pressure are good signs for the future. It's a roundabout way of saying I think proof will be in the pudding with the EDC. I think at the moment the plan. Things needed to change. I think that's a fair assessment. I think parts of the plan are really great. Parts of the plan haven't been explained well enough. I thought they were explained well to the media in August how they were originally, and then afterwards, I think it's not quite been as joined together. So it's a process of basically what we say normally is the WIU possibly could explain things a bit better going forward throughout the year. And on another side of that involves people like me in the media for picking up those stories and giving it to the people in a way, in a less sort of magnanimous look at us way than how I said that. But if that makes sense, that I think that could be also improved as well.
Yeah, I think I agree. Particularly with Dan's point, I think personally, we did try the A leagues in what I think was the original Celtic Challenge before it became a women's development competition. It was the Celtic Cup, I think it was, with the Irish teams. But then it was sort of like a couple of games here and there, and then there was no actual format, and actually it could have done with being fleshed out. And maybe if we had 2 teams each or whatever, and bringing RGC in for that extra development. But that's by one of the other questions I got, which is from our sister pod, Scarlet's Fever, asking, is Shane Lewis Hughes
sorry, do we not boo them every time you mention them?
Yeah, you're supposed to, yes. Yeah. I couldn't break sense striking with a boo. Is Shane Lewis Hughes a stopgap playing in the second row or a long-term project? Because we did bring up, thing. I thought it's quite pertinent with the worst kept secret of Turnbull retiring and Sherratt being open that he sees Shane Lewis Hughes as the natural successor.
I jumped in on that because I interviewed him at the start of the season. He said he's a 6. He said himself he sees himself as a 6, and when he plays in the second row, he plays like a 6. I think that is he's happy to help out. He's he's a brilliant team member, and he will always do whatever he can to help the team. But he sees himself as a 6. I think everyone else concurs, but he does appreciate the fact that having that versatility is good for his game and getting more game time. And obviously last season didn't get much game time, so I think he's enjoying having the opportunity to play more. But yeah, I think in an ideal world he would be playing 6 week in and week out.
Yeah, I think if you we'll get onto the game on Saturday, but for all intents and purposes, Cardiff played on Saturday with 4 back rowers, 1 second row, and 3 front rowers. and Shane just happened to pack down in the second row. He's a great player. He played really well on Saturday. Shame he went off injured, but I think you saw when Glasgow tightened it up in the second half that we really missed the bulk of sort of two natural second rows in there, and it's great for his versatility. Same, I'm sure Ben Donnell will slot in there at some point as well in his career, and in the same way Turnbull did. But it's not a long-term sustainable thing to have for particularly a Cardiff pack that is always undersized, to have a natural blindside playing in the second row.
Well, it's one of the things when the team sheet came out, and I had a look, and Ben Donnell had far more caps. He spent a far higher percentage of his career playing second row. He's also bigger in both height and weight than Shane Lewis-Hughes. So actually, if anything, he'd probably be the natural guy to put in there. But I did think it was just, they just want having that player who is fairly versatile, and you can slot around the back five. It does help when you've got an injury crisis and we're all, both of our first choice second rows are called up to whole tackle bags or whatever.
Mm. If we pick up something in the summer, if we did pick up a South African second row, as some bongo drums suggest we might do, then you can have him in there. Like, I think Donnell played a lot in the second row for Irish because generally the rest of their pack was massive, and then you can carry somebody who is slightly smaller than in the second row. Whereas, so if Shane Lewis-Hughes was going in there alongside, like, just a pluck out an Etzebeth or something in the second row. We're not signing Etzebeth, but just a boom, and then you had like Timani at 8, and then you had a massive hooker or something. That's fine. That's more sort of medium term sustainable to do that, and adds a bit of mobility alongside those massive guys. But with respect to sort of like Teddy, and they're not. We haven't got big physical second row enforcers, so it's sort of middle sized second row guys alongside smaller ones, and then your whole pack's a bit smaller as a result. So it's all about balance at the end of the day. But I don't think Cardiff can't balance a pack at the moment with a blindside at second row.
Also, I can't think of many other clubs that or regions or anything where you've got back rowers moving to second row. It's often the other way round. I think you think Courtney Laws moved to back row. You think Franco Moster second row to back row. Ali Wing played a bit of back row. I can't think of many that have gone starting off back row, moved to second row. Obviously, maybe Fafita, but let's be honest, we all know that's also he's better off in the back row. But I can't think of many other examples that jump out to my brain. I was just thinking about that now.
Yeah, no, Madden.
Shingler's the only one that immediately maybe strikes me as one. There's more of a natural flanker who's played second row, but yes, it's not. There's not a long list certainly.
No.
Yeah. So it's definitely usually more the other way. I suppose Tame Plumtree, Christians, are they looking at that? Although I suppose Trunzer he developed a lot as second row as well.
Yeah, I think he's a second row along to that weird 7 thing extra. I don't quite understand that. But
that's just because Rob Baxter refuses to accept the existence of open side flankers. I'm convinced of it because he then got Jacques Vermeulen to play second row, who is as close as they got to an actual out and out 7.
Yeah, Classic for a while, who was an out and out 7. He was the best 7.
They got rid of him. He got rid of him. He went, what's this nonsense? Only Luke Cohen-Dickey's allowed over the ball. Off you go. Off up to Newcastle with you. Crazy man. Yeah. Anyway, so shall we delve into the game then against Glasgow? So despite leading 13-0 at half time, we end up losing 17-13. Carwyn, do you want to pull the copy and paste from last week, Claxon, or no?
No. We'll let Dan do that. Dan, what did you think about the game? As you have fresh eyes and haven't got an opinion that is touted by being on this pod week in
It was as we've been all season, really. I thought we played quite well in parts, and we were in it, but we never really looked like winning it. I never thought at any point in that game, oh, we'll win this. But I think, context in this one, no one else has taken a point from Scotstoun this season. It was probably a 20-25 point wind, I think, from what I could see on telly that they were playing with. Ultimately, we didn't make enough of it in the first half. Was the problem of the conditions in the first half? We spent way too long defending. Glasgow were quite comfortable going through the phases. That never really threatening. Our defence was good, but they just kept the ball in our half for way too long. Couple of individual errors prevented us from building any pressure. Try was a cracker, arguably try of the season contender. But once Glasgow got with the wind and really tightened up the game, went very direct. I thought, I don't want to linger on any refereeing, but Murphy generally refereed it with the wind as well. The team that was dominant with the wind got more of the decisions. And so whereas we had a few going our way in the first half, a couple went their way in the second half, they just built up the pressure. And then we had the chance at the end. Don't quite know what Bevan's doing. Don't quite understand. But having watched it back, I don't even know. Is he kicking it through for Summerhill to chase? Maybe. Not sure that's the right option in that circumstance. But it's not one moment that wins or loses a game. We could have been in a position to kick on if we'd probably put another 5 to 7 points on in that first half and really ask Glasgow to kind of climb a bit of a mountain in the second half. But yeah, there was bits to like. I thought the defence was probably the best it's looked all season on Saturday. The stats are mad. I can't remember what the final one was, but it's well over 200 tackles. I think Teddy Williams made 30 odd.
52 the RC having down as
the 3-2. That's crazy.
I've got their little stats. The URC send out stats things to like all the people who do pods and stuff. Yes, we did 32. I'll have a look, see what our fine was. I think it's 250 odd. It's way up there.
Yeah, it's generally something to build on, but I mean, it is same old as so close yet so far, really.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? I will say though on this one, before last weekend, I was looking at the fixtures and I went, okay, Ospreys could win, Scarlets could win, Dragons. I didn't fancy them against the Bulls because Bulls are so strong, but I thought, Cardiff going to Glasgow, that's a loss, probably a heavy loss, to be honest. History's dictated Welsh teams going to Glasgow get thumped. I appreciate Glasgow probably weren't at full strength, but neither were Cardiff. And from that perspective, taking a point away from Glasgow is a brilliant result. It's not a brilliant result when you're 13-0 up. I think that's the frustration, and that has been the frustration a few times this season. There's been great performances, but maybe not the result. It feels almost like it needs one of them to tip over, and then they'll go like dominoes. And I hope that's the case. My one feeling is I hope that it happens start of next. I almost hope this is going to sound really bad, but I almost hope it happens start of next season rather than end of this season, so that you've got the momentum at the start of the season, can continue it rather than end of the season, get your momentum boost, and then you've got to start it all over again next season. But it's I'm probably going to regret saying that. But I think for Cardiff, it's just the copy and paste thing is the obvious one, isn't it, Harley? I think we've said it all season that just not enough points on the board in the first half seems to be a general theme.
And then none in the second as well. But going back to Dan's point of taking one or two, if we've got 5 or 6, 5, so between 5 and 14 points on the board, and you think we got pushed into touch twice, 5 meters out, and we got held up twice, and you're just like, including one, which actually, I don't really want to go into ref chat, but it definitely looked like it was worth a second look, at least on the camera angle they replayed. But I mean, from that one angle I did get shown in defence, it doesn't look. You can't tell he's over the line. But I feel like we could have. There were some chances that we really should have taken before, and then the kicking out on the full seemed to be a theme for teams based in Cardiff Arms Park. But I say we'll move on to the women's game later. As we mentioned, Teddy Williams, fantastic game. One thing that I was very impressed with was our maul defence, which I know has been quite good. I know Dan, you like doing the gifts of the maul men.
I do like a maul men. And particularly at Glasgow, where I think Johnny Matthews has scored 4 million tries or something like that from I think the official stat is from mauls. Like that is what they do. They kick to the corner and they maul you over. So to prevent them doing that on a day where the weather was really poor, and they had like 5-6 chances to do so. I mean, it was the more defense, but also the sort of defensive line out as well. We put people up in the air, we put pressure on them. It was fair play to presumably Scott Andrews, who devised that over the week. That's a really impressive training week, and to the players for putting it on the pitch in an area where we're not classically strong more defence wise, particularly on our own line. It is sort of a free try for the opposition if they kick it to the corner quite often. So yeah, that was really impressive. And then the flip side is somewhere we're usually quite good is our red zone attack, like you mentioned, Harley being held up twice. I don't know, it just felt like we were rushing a lot under the posts. Like there wasn't a lot of control to sort of the pick and go game, and it's somewhere where over the last few years we've built that quite well and getting the right people carrying the ball, but to end up, I think it was Rhys Carey ends up on his back over the line with the ball sort of on top of him. He's basically held himself up essentially. I think maybe the conditions and maybe the sort of psychological aspect of not expecting to get much, and that we have to take advantage of every time we get in their red zone played into it a bit. But we were just trying to snatch opportunities in the red zone rather than sort of controlling the tempo and looking for the right moment. There was a lot of sort of single carries from the base of the ruck to try and get over, where we're much better when we get a latch set and really push over. But different stories at different ends of the field, unfortunately, but easily fixable. It's just about putting it all together at some point.
Yeah, I do think there's been a little bit of that with us this season, where when it clicks, it looks great, but sometimes I do feel like we do run out of patience a bit quickly, because I feel like I do wonder where if it's been both a blessing and a curse that we have been picking up losing bonus points, we've been staying in the fight. And I think it's just the thought, we've got to score now, so we can get out of that, so we can just get that win. One person I do want to say feel sorry for, Tina Stabia missing that kick. Not because it's the narrative of him missing goal kicks, but if he'd got it, it would have taken him up to 100 points in the URC, which would have just been a very nice milestone. Any other thoughts for the game? I was expecting a huge rant on that kick at the the end of the game. I
just didn't really like. Maybe it was a not understanding where the clock was, or again feeling rushed and having to sort of proper push into it. But I don't quite understand what's gone through Bevan's mind. And Bevan's a really good player. I think he has a high ceiling, and maybe there's an element there of the fact that over the last few years we haven't properly exposed him quite enough. a lot of times we've left Thomas or when Lloyd was still here, we used them a lot, and we haven't quite put him in those situations enough. So it's you don't want to keep saying this word, but it is a learning point for him, because they obviously rate him in the fact that they left Aubrey on the bench and Bevan played the full 80. But it was an odd one that I've just. Even if you could sort of see what he was trying, I'd understand it a bit, but I don't. Even if that ball stays in field, I don't see Alan Summerhill ever getting on the end of that, and I don't think Summerhill was expecting it either, to be honest. So.
I'll save my rant on last-minute kicks for a bit later.
As I said, there's a couple to get to. So moving on. So our next opponents we're away to Munster. I believe we're at Tottenham, which is unusual because normally we get pushed into the Musgrave Park game, so they feel like they need the extra home boost to take on us after with our great record against them recently, and our record for beating former URC champions. So what do we all expect from this game?
Oh, they're a big bunch. I was down at the Liberty, Swansea.com, sorry, on Friday night. And Ospreys tried to play in a different style, basically, is what happened. They tried to put a bit more width on the ball. I don't quite think it was a good plan. They got picked off for 2 interceptions. It was 19-0 within 18 minutes. Got caught out for a try early doors as well. Get caught too narrow on an attacking play off a set play off a line out. Ospreys got back in the game quite a lot through their forwards who they were quite a few of them were brilliant. I thought Sam Parry carried brilliantly, but the issue Ospreys were getting, where they weren't getting their normal go forward in the pack that they normally have. I think Cardiff actually probably suit better. Cardiff are used to not getting that go forward in the pack to the extent that possibly the Ospreys do. So we're probably more used to going out wide earlier, which there were opportunities there. It was quite often if you watched Munster, they ended up being narrower. This is why O'Brien got 2 interceptions, was that he was narrower in field to be able to take the ball because there was space out wide, be it Keelan Giles or Kieran Williams, and his outside to take the ball. So I think there's opportunities there. I don't think Munster are the finished project. Munster last week's quite openly said that was their biggest game of the season against Ospreys at the Swansea.com. So it could be a case of after the Lord's Mayor show as well, which could help out. But they were impressive in parts. They weren't that impressive in parts. It wasn't a brilliant performance, but they are seemingly starting to get things together, Munster. So I do expect it to be a very tough challenge, as it always is.
My tuppence is I'm going to read the Munster injury update. This is on their website this week. It says, in player news, Tyg Byrne, Jack Crowley, Conor Murray, Calvin Nash and Peter O'Mahony have all returned to the High Performance Centre after helping Ireland to the Six Nations title. So I'd just like to wish Cardiff very best of luck on Saturday.
I said, especially with the looks of Byrne and Crowley. Murray, not so much for me though. I feel like he is definitely starting to feel his age a little bit. I mean, he can definitely pull off some game management, but yeah, I'd say, I'm more worried about Casey, who's been Craig Casey from the scrum half perspective. And Peter O'Mahony is just, I adore him. He's such a shithouse. You've got someone who loves that kind of player. He's like one of the best in the business.
Sorry, I was going to jump in about the Craig Casey thing. I don't get it. I don't see what people see. I don't know what it is. I think it's just, it must be a mental block of mine. I've had them before. I had one over Josh van der Fleer, so that we can. I've made wrong calls in the past. That's for certain. But
the problem was he hadn't worked on his carrying by that point.
Yeah, that was my excuse. But it didn't stand too much stead with some people when they were like, "You didn't rate this player, now he's won World Player of the Year." But Craig Casey, maybe he needs to work on his carrying. Maybe he needs to become like a 20 yards after contact ball carrier, and then I'll give him some credit.
No, one for James from the Ospreys, because I know he loves a bit of Boofy Bingo, but maybe Craig just needs some time in the saddle.
Yeah, maybe.
I'm a big fan of the Boofy Bingo from the Ospreys book. Yeah, I mean, we're getting a few Wales internationals back by the sound of it. Domachowski, Azarati, Alex Mann, they're all going to be back, as are
Josh Adams is back in training this week. So.
Yeah, I kind of want to rest him. I know how important he is for us, but he just didn't look fit in the Six Nations, and the whole thing with having to drain blood out of his knees every match is. It says to me that just let him have some time off.
He's had a week in Dubai. That's more than enough. Get him back on the field.
All right, that's fine. That works for me.
I say on Josh, I really rated his Instagram post because he's had a rough time. He has had a rough time, and he's clearly low on confidence. He's clearly low on everything, and to come out and say it, fair play. I completely rated it, and I think it showed real strength in himself to be able to say that out publicly, and then just be like, I am feeling this at the moment. I am struggling, but I'm going to work my socks off to come back, because everyone knows Josh Adams. As far as heart goes, there's very few got as much heart and want to play for the shirt as him. So fingers crossed he gets back to his best.
I'd also add that his scoring record remains excellent for Cardiff, despite quite a poor spell in the Welsh shirt. I suspect probably because of a slight change in role and becoming sort of the new Cuthbert in a way off that right wing, which doesn't really suit him. But yeah, his scoring record for Cardiff remains very, very good. Yeah,
I think it's one of those weird ones where Wales seem to, they seem to be geared. I don't know if it's something to do with the handedness of the 10s or whatever, but they always seem to, it's usually the left winger who tends to be your try scoring machine, because I think Squid Rugby put out and he looked at the try scoring record of Josh Adams of all his games, and in centre, when he played outside centre, which fullback wing, both wings, right wing was the lowest score try scoring rate because I just don't think it's it's what they use the right winger for.
I think
Whereas
they
I
also
think in Cardiff
Wales.
it tends to be more like we're always talking about Owen Lane score his try scoring.
Wales
Yeah, I do
rarely score sort of multi-phase tries as well. So where Cardiff sort of go side to side quite well and create a gap, Wales are either sort of scoring first phase or not really scoring.
I thought you were going to say boom or bust there, Dan.
So need to get a cliche job. All right, as I said, I think turn back. So it's 7:35 kickoff. I believe this game we are on S4C as well as Viaplay. Do we want to have a go at guessing the team? I know last time we tried this, Carwyn, it was just very much not what we expected. But shall we have a go?
Can I have a go?
So Dan, do you want to kick us off? Do you want to do 15 to 8 or?
I'll do the backs then. I think
I just went which way round do you want to go?
Oh, I see. Yeah. What, I don't know. I've never really named a team out loud before, so I have no idea what way I would normally do it. I'll start. I'll do. Yeah. Let's go 15, and then
15 to 9, 1 to 8.
Yeah, let's
because
go.
that's
I
just
think
the way I like the team sheet. Look.
Win it. Wingers then. Presumably, Adams comes straight back in if he's fit.
Left or right?
He plays on the right for us mostly, I feel like. So I'd probably put him in 14 and then put Grady back at 11. I think that's how they were playing before Christmas when they were both in the team, wasn't it? So, is Lilo back yet? I can't remember when he's unsuspended.
I don't know. Have we called him up for the rags for another game?
Yeah, he's obviously missed his massive game against Newport. Gutted about that.
We could have won that game if we had Lilo playing.
Because Clark went off injured, didn't he? So 13 is an interesting one. I didn't actually see what happened to Clark at all. I've watched it back, and he makes a run from a kick through and then just disappears from the screen for ages. I have no idea what happens at all. So 13, it will be interesting. Whether it could be Grady time at 13 if Lilo's not back, because they obviously are not keen on Willis there after the sort of lack of pace that was shown against it was Bath, I think, was it? Or was it Harlequins? No, Harlequins, he got exposed a bit, wasn't it? So let's go Adams, Summerhill, Grady at 13. Let's go for it big time. Ben Thomas at 12, and then Tina.
I think half-packs.
Yeah, Tina's and Bevan.
Yeah. Anything you want to change or query on that one? I said I think that's about right.
Can I just say, I think following on. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, no, go on. You finish yours.
I was just going to say, following on from what I was saying earlier, I think Ben is a must at 12. I think having his distribution would be crucial to try and get on the outside. So I'd really want to see him at 12 this week. Otherwise, I haven't got any complaints. I think, it'd be nice to see Grady in the centres. Don't know if it's going to happen, but. I think I'm also a fan of Summerhill, so I feel a bit. I get pulled in both directions because I do like. He's another one who's got a really good scoring record. It certainly feels like it. So he's just not always the first choice. That's his only issue.
Absolutely. I know we start trying to do team naming, but I just thought because you did bring him up. What have you thought about Max Clark now? Since he's had a couple of runs in the 13, I think he's been quite assured and actually quite welcome revelation because I wasn't so sure because he didn't really do much for Dragons.
No, he was good for Bath before though. He was really good for Bath, and that's why I was surprised when I was surprised that he didn't play as much at Dragons. I know he had injuries as well and has had injuries throughout his whole career, but he's always been a good player. He's a good ball player. He's strong. He's also fairly quick. He's got a decent kicking game. He's perfect for a centre. Oh, he's got all the attributes. It's just getting him a run of games, and perhaps he's not always I wouldn't have said he's got this attribute or this attribute, which is what tends to happen with centres. You're either big, got great distribution, or you're really quick. That seems to be a centres, but he seems to have all of them, but not quite like this one attribute we would say that's his skill set. always been a fan of his. Just surprised he hasn't had as much chance with the Dragons.
Then
Yeah, I'm not too in a position to comment because I was away for the weekend of the Leinster game, and I cannot get any motivation to watch it back for some reason. So I've missed that one altogether. But he looked very solid on Saturday. It's his hands that put Thomas Young through for the try, I think, isn't it? And I mean, that's a nice little switch up to bring him into sort of 12 there and use Ben a bit wider. So if he's got that in his game, great. I think probably the biggest compliment you can pay him is he looks solid, and often the top teams are the teams that have the most solid players during sort of international windows and when there's injuries. He's I just looking at him from his physique, there's something Gavin Evans about him. I don't know what it is, but he just appears Gavin Evans-ish in that he's not big, but he's defensively solid, and he carries a bit. He's got decent hands, but I don't know if he's a long term. I don't think anyone knows how he's still here, to be honest, because his 1 month loan in October is a hell of a 1 month loan at this point. But I don't know if he's long term or what the sort of thing is there. But he's done a job, and that's all you can ask of a loan signing, really.
I mean, I wouldn't complain if we did find out that we're signing him sort of permanently for a year or two, just to like just whilst we're trying to bring through the next crop of centres or whatever.
Depends. I suppose centre, for just looking at next season, is an interesting one where Lilo retirement. Halaholo ? Does he get a long-term deal? Then you've got Grady ? Does he stay? And beyond that, then sort of it's Ben Thomas. That's about it, really. And Steph Emmanuel's young, so he's not going to go straight in, presumably. So if I think we got linked with a South African outside centre from Neil Fissler a few weeks ago. I don't whether that I can't remember who it was or anything about him, but if somebody wants to Google that, they can feel free while listening. But yeah, it's not immediately looking like a position of massive depth at the moment. So if they pick Clark up as somebody happy to be third or fourth choice, then that wouldn't be too bad if he's relatively cheap, presumably.
Carwyn, do you want to just quickly go through the pack, and then I'll go through the subs.
Yeah,
That's like sometimes.
Lou said I'd go with Carey, actually. I think stick with him. Give bring Thomas Husky off the bench. I'm not going to make a point like Tom Shankly did on Scrum 5 on Sunday. We're like, a very pointed point about Carey playing 80 minutes, but yeah, he played well. Belcher then and Azarati, I'd like to see come back in. Obviously, he's played really well for Cardiff. Teddy, after the whole Shane Lewis chat, I do like having a Thornton or a Seb with Teddy, if possible, and whenever available. I think that's always a benefit to have one of those two. So probably. I'm trying to remember which one is more likely to be fit. Is it Thornton at the moment?
Well, Seb Plate was on the bench last week.
It's probably
just he's hit. I don't know about do you know anything about Thornton? Whether he's injured or not?
I vaguely remember him being mentioned a few weeks ago, sort of early Six Nations time. I cannot just Googling him quickly now, but there's nothing. I think he probably came up on Twitter somewhere, but I didn't. He wasn't a travelling reserve last Saturday. So, which suggests that he potentially isn't fit yet. Well, certainly wasn't on Saturday anyway.
I guess go Seb for now.
Yeah, and then
now the difficult one.
I think you keep Thomas Young. So I think it then becomes simpler. Thomas Young at 7. Marnie? Maybe.
So I missed that one.
Tamani at 8 is probably my go to.
If he's fit.
He's fit. If he's fit, you play him. If not, I'd go Big Mac. And then 6. I don't know. At the moment, I still haven't seen enough better Ben Donald because obviously he's been in and out with injuries and in and out with performances, but or selection, I should say, rather than performances. But yeah, probably Ben Donald at 6. For his physicality, I think it'd be good to get him in there, because that is a huge pack. I know I said earlier about playing around them, but it is a huge pack, so you've got to try and front up to them, and then try and play around them with the likes of Thomas Young, with the likes of Ben Thomas as well.
Anything you want to query there, Dan?
Yeah, it's quite tricky actually. Back row, I agree. Young has the 7 shirt now. If he's fit, he wears 7 essentially at this point. Yeah, it isn't hard to understand what they're going to do. I wonder if he does start Mac again. I think there's a mention that Faletau will be fit by the next lot of games. So I think we're off for a few weeks after this, aren't we? Where we're no longer in Europe. And so if Faletau is fit again, maybe he just starts Martin as a sort of last chance he can get a start before Faletau returns for the end of the season. But yeah, I think the point on Donald over Mann is a good one about the physicality aspect, because it is going to be a battle. And then if you're picking which one of those is going to have a greater impact off the bench, then Mann with his more athleticism, a bit more pace, probably the last 25, 30 is your better option there. You can play, he can do 7 if you need him to as well, if something was to happen to Young. So yeah, I don't hate that. If Tamani's fit, would you could consider him back in the second row potentially?
I mean, it would certainly add some extra beef there.
Yeah,
that's one thing I do think.
I don't know. Tamani's fitness seems to sort of change by the wind, essentially. So,
is it going to be the new Nick Williams? Never travels.
Yeah, it's just sort of massaging his massive legs for like 3 weeks between games, and then he plays once every month or something like that. But yeah, I can't find a reason to disagree with any of those picks. But the pack is a tough one, or particularly the back 5 is a tough one to argue with. The only thing I would say is maybe starts on Wachowski just because Carey's legs might be a bit puffing after weekend. But just on a wider point about Carey playing 80 minutes while we're on it, I would like to see Barrett play a little bit at some point.
Yes,
I don't really
he's going to be.
Yeah,
he's going to be key next year.
I don't. Towards the end of that Glasgow game, yeah, the points there about Carey's fitness and stuff, but he was puffing in the last 5-10 minutes because, to be fair, he's a prop player in 80 minutes. It doesn't matter whether you're fit or unfit, you're going to be struggling there. So I don't quite, in the same way that we mentioned earlier about Bevan not getting quite the chances, and then now he's having to learn on the job a bit. You worry maybe if Barrett doesn't quite get the chances now, he's going to have to learn on the job quite quickly next season, and that could be a slight issue.
Yeah, completely agree. I would also like to make the point that, like, the Leinster game where Carey did play a lot of minutes and obviously was given a lot of praise for his ball carrying, he also did miss a few tackles. So if you play 80 minutes, it doesn't mean you've played well for 80 minutes. That's the. I think that is another point I would make about it. The whole pointedness of that point. I'm a little bit betwixt and between on that one. I can see both sides, but yeah, it's not as clear cut as if you play 80 minutes, you're therefore fit enough for international rugby.
I mean, yeah, there were a couple of games early in the season as well where Carey seemed to be left on about 5-10 minutes too early before bringing Barrett on, and you could tell he's good, and it was things like, a scrum he was holding up quite well, and he just didn't have the legs to push anymore, or his carrying just wasn't very effective. He was basically accepting contact onto him. We do. We have a bench user, but I think that's been a running theme. I mean, the one thing I might have said is maybe give Will Davis-King another run. I think he's been going all right, but I mean, if not for me, I think if Carey starts, Domachowski's the bench loose head. If Azarati starts, then Will Davis-King's the bench tight head. You swap it around. I've got Evan Daniel on the bench as the reserve hooker.
Azarati's carrying a back problem as well, from what I understand.
If that's the case, then I'd be tempted to.
So I think
drop him and keep
he'll be managed. King and Parker. He'll be managed in this run-in, certainly.
There's a joke there about carrying the scrum as well, but that's not.
Yeah, so I just have to start this bench front row. 19. I've said if we haven't got Thornton, maybe go. You go for Shane. You go for your Shane Lewis Hughes.
Question mark over his fitness though. Seemed to be hobbling when he went off on Saturday. It turned his ankle inside like sort of 3-4 minutes, and was noticeably hobbling when he went off. So I don't I don't know how fit. He seems like somebody who sort of just, unless his limbs are hanging off, he's sort of there really. So, but yeah, if he's fit, certainly. But I think there's a question mark.
Struggle to do. Bit of a struggle then to think of what you do. You're 19 and 20. I suppose if Turnbull's fit,
Yeah.
Obviously he's definitely, and you get that leadership off the bench, or if maybe if you have Tamani, if he's not starting, you bring him off the bench.
Could use you could just do 2 back rowers as well. If you say I don't know, Mann and Jenkins, and then use Donnell as your sort of backup second row. Then
that would work as well. I think that's probably what I was thinking. Jenkins, and then Ben scrum half. Is Jamie Hull injured again? Then I'm guessing.
I don't know. I don't think he is. I think they're just selecting Aubrey over him at the moment.
But I mean, if you're not going to play him, you might as well put Hill on and at least give him some minutes if they're considering him in the future, unless there's something we don't know about behind the scenes.
Yeah, I have no further information on that other than it does appear that Hill is fit, but is just not. He was in Glasgow on Saturday. He was the travelling reserve. So.
I mean, personally, and unless he's coming back, I mean, personally, I'd like to see more Jamie Hill than Matt Aubrey, but that's for off-field reasons due to some of the shenanigans at Ospreys. 22 jersey, probably Halaholo then, if we've got. I imagine he's been doing that role.
I feel like we should say not necessarily at the club on that comment.
Again, it was also off-field, and there was nothing to do with with the Ospreys themselves. Yes,
yeah, just thought
it was to do with his time outside of.
Blame the Ospreys, I reckon. Blame them.
There was a little Ratty, and Ratty likes them more than us now, and I'm really upset because I miss Ratty.
20 like journalism libel claxons blaring in my head.
Just the word allegedly before, in massive letters.
As I said before, I
don't think we need to say that.
There's no point suing me. I have nothing.
I was saying the Ospreys can't afford to sue anyone, is that
right? So then 23 jersey, guessing. Looking at Owen Lane, filling that 23 jersey again. If you got Halaholo in the 22,
yeah.
Because I feel like you're covering 10 with Ben Thomas, or do we go for someone like Beetham, you've then got him as a 12?
Yeah, I forgot about Beetham. I'd really like to see Beetham at 12 a bit more in the run-in, because I think if you listen, I was listening to the Griff Feast podcast you guys did a couple of weeks ago, and he specifically name checks Matty Young at fullback. So I think if you look further down the line, you've got Winnett, Matty Young, Cody Stone. We've just signed Tom Bowen back, all who can play at fullback. So just on the depth chart element, Beetham's long-term future looks more 12. So I think Beetham and Halaholo could be the option, and then you use Grady as your wing cover then if he's in the centres.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was very impressed by Matty Young for Wales and 20s against Italy. They played really well in that game. So, he looks like a good prospect for the future, definitely.
Yeah, I suppose as well with Beetham, he does, he's very similar player to Ben Thomas in that respect. So, he does give you a bit of harder carrying. He's got an excellent kicking game because he has played a bit of 10 as well. So, yeah, I think that's
I think arguably he's got a higher ceiling than Thomas at 12, which is a big shout. I appreciate. But I just with that carrying element, I just think that translates to the international arena better than I think specifically within the context of the Wales team, better than Thomas does. Just Thomas would be a cracking international 12 in a national team that had a functioning pack. Like if he was French or something, absolutely fantastic, get him in there, or English. But in a Wales team that presumably over the next few years will struggle to provide that consistent platform up front, having an additional carrying option, plus a footballer, plus a playmaker at 12, Beetham perhaps is more likely to win more international caps than Ben Thomas is, which Ben Thomas has played fantastically for Cardiff this season, but just on a sort of next 3 to 5 year level, I could see Beetham on 30 caps and Thomas maybe not too many more than he is now.
I'm tempted to agree with you, but the last time I made an international prediction with Beetham was I said he's probably more likely to get into Warren Gatland's side that can win it. And let's move on from that one.
Yeah. So just quickly then, boys, get your predictions for the Munster game. So on the wrap. So I'm tied to what I said. So I went for Munster by 6 because I'm just backing us to get at least a losing bonus point every game now because that seems the sensible bet. What about you two?
Yeah, I Munster by 6 as well. Yeah, I agree.
Dan?
I'm tempted to be a lot more pessimistic. I'm just Googling the weather in Limerick on Saturday. It's not looking good. I'm gonna say Munster by sort of 15-ish, which sounds pessimistic, but we do tend to score tries at Thomond, or Munster generally when we go there. So Munster by 15, but I'll give us a losing bonus point for scoring 4 tries along the way.
Yep, so works for me. Right, and because we said we definitely would take this, so I just want to go through the Wales women's game. Obviously narrowly lost to Scotland. First time Scotland have beaten Wales women since 2004. Weird. That sounds like deja vu. I'm sure we mentioned something like a similar a few weeks ago. Cracking game. Loved it. I was sort of keeping one eye on it whilst also trying to stop a 1-year-old who was completely covered in chocolate and other crumbs from escaping from her splat mats to like the relatives who'd come over for a party. But cracking game. I thought wrong result for us, wrong side of the result for us. So Lakey George misses a penalty, misses a conversion to draw it. Right towards the death. Do you think that was a result was a fair reflection?
Yes. I think Scotland deserved to win. I don't think Wales deserved to win. It's a little bit coming. I think you look at the WXV tournament and the way Wales performed versus Scotland. Scotland are now, what was it, their 5th, 6th, or was it 7th consecutive win? They are flying at the moment. They've got makings of a good team without even. I think Conkle wasn't playing obviously, and you've got great captain and Taylor. You've got great outside backs in Grant and Lloyd. You've got started to sort out that 10-12 combination that seems to be sorting itself out now. It took a while to bed in, but Thompson in there. But I was so frustrated by Wales. I think I kind of could see it coming that gap had closed between Scotland, Ireland, and Italy to Wales, rather than the other gap closing up to France and England. I think that it was so obviously the case. It knocked the stuffing out a lot of the players to lose to Australia in the WXV, and I think that took a while to get over. But then all the talk before the game and in the press conference was utilise Lakey George's ability with the ball, both in ball in hand and ball on boot, be it 50-20s or crossfield kicks, and we just didn't see enough of it, or we didn't see it utilised effectively enough to get the ball to these exciting backs. Nell Metcalfe is a brilliant attacker. Jazz Joyce is one of the best in the world. Jenny Hesketh is massively highly thought of. Okay, I appreciate Nell Metcalfe and Jenny are very inexperienced. It was Jenny's debut, but I just didn't feel that there was they were the same issues that there's always been, that they weren't managing to get the ball out successfully enough to the outside backs. And when they went back to the forward game, they were a bit more successful. However, what I would say, if you compare it to last year or even the year before, Wales were utterly dominant in the pack last year and the year before. This year, it was only a slight dominance. That gap has closed. The forward dominance has closed. So they need to develop their game, because other teams have developed their game to strengthen their pack, becoming more professional, having that strength and depth in the pack. Wales at the moment it's a bit frustrating, to be honest, to say the least. And yeah, it could be a difficult tournament. And on the flip side, obviously, with World Cup and WXV qualification, it's huge to finish 3rd place. And Ireland's going to be tough, I think. I think they have really improved as well. So, yeah, it's going to be a tough ask for them.
they've done.
Yeah, I think Carwyn summed it up perfectly there. It was very frustrating and disappointing, Wales' performance. I think just to go a bit deeper on selections, didn't understand George Evans' benching. Did not understand that at all. Obviously, I almost acknowledged the mistake by bringing her on at half time, and she was very good in the second half, in fairness. But I think with Llaki George coming in at 10, it signals a change in that she's very different from Eleanor Snowsill as a player. She's obviously got the kicking game, but she Snowsill was so fluid in the way that she moved the ball and sort of conducted that back line. George is slightly less sort of structured almost in that sense. She's obviously a carrying threat herself, and that just didn't click. And then the pack struggled for dominance, and I think it raises questions in two areas for me. Is back row, are Butchers and Callender the right flanker pairing, or do you need an extra bit of physicality there in the back row, an extra sort of tight ball carrying threat? Because Butchers is a fantastic player. She kind of wriggles through contact, and she can, in the wide channels, it's like having another centre almost there. But she's not going to take the ball and truck it up into two or three players and make you a yard. Neither is Callender necessarily. Bethan Lewis was doing a lot of that donkey work. And when you've got Kate Williams on the bench and Gwennan Hopkins, who's clearly a super talent for Gwalia Lightning, and I want to say she's probably one of the Gloucester Hartpury players as well. There are other big ball carrying options there who can give you that something to the middle of the field. And then centre wise, we just didn't get anything massively from Lake and Jones. I don't think they've been together a little while now as a centre pairing. I don't know whether teams have sort of figured them out to a degree, or whether it's going to take them time to gel with George there at 10 and sort of develop that partnership. But I don't know if they play together. I'll be honest, my club level knowledge of the women's game isn't fantastic. I know pretty much the whole team was Gloucester Hartpury. Do they all play together?
Yeah, they all play for Gloucester.
Oh, well then that's a rubbish excuse for them.
No, it just adds to the reasoning why doesn't it mesh?
Yeah, and I think the concern for Cunningham will be that there isn't a back row. There is options there, but at centre there's not a huge amount of options there. There isn't the next obvious players coming through there. I think we saw a couple of handy looking players in the Celtic Challenge. Thought Ellie Tromans looked quite good for Britain Thunder. Thought Danny. Forgive me, I've completely forgotten her name off the top of my head now. Double barrel surname who played in the 12.
Filippo.
Yes, that's it. Yeah, not quite double barrel, but sort of two words, She was a really interesting sort of big ball carrying option at 12 and looked really good. So that there was Jenna De Vera as well, who I think was the under-20s captain potentially last year. She's a little bit on the smaller side, maybe a 13 long term, but she looked an interesting talent as well. But there's not anybody obviously ready to come in there, and so maybe they've got a touch comfortable. I don't know, but that's certainly I think bringing back that sort of ultra physicality and that platform to build the kicking game and the attacking game around George is what is needed for Wales. If Scotland are getting closer and Ireland were very physical against France, then we're going to have to develop a way to sort of refine our physical edge.
Yeah, sorry, I just wanted to jump off the centres point because they've used Catherine Williams-Morris, they've used Hannah Bluck in the centres as well. Obviously, there would have been plans with Norkett to put her in the centres, but she then decided to move away from international rugby. So they're in a situation now, I think, where Karen and Hannah are the obvious choices, and are very good players. And I'm not criticising them for that, but they also had Meg Webb, who I was a big fan of. Meg Webb, World Cup, looked like a real prospect. Bit of gas, but also a good ball carrier. Sadly, then did what a lot of players have done in the serious ACL injury. I think it was ACL, but definitely ligaments in a knee injury. And then, has struggled to get back into that prime form again, and understandably so. So And I think the same has happened with Butchers. You mentioned Butchers earlier. The thought of debating whether Butchers should be in the team 2 years ago would have just been unfathomable. But I think it says a lot about Bethan Lewis's form and Alex Callender's form as well, that you then go, okay, if things aren't working out in their back row, who's the person who drops out? Because at the moment it can't be Al Cal and it can't be Bethan Lewis. So you're sort of then going, well, are we looking at Alicia Butchers, who for me 2 years ago was Wales's best player by a country mile? So I've sort of in a way talked about another serious issue in the women's game, which is serious knee injuries and having an effect on players' careers, because it's so serious. But when you're talking about players like that have the talent of Webb, and Butchers, it's very sad.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing I said, so I was on Pirate Rugby last night, and we were talking about the Wales thing and saying that actually does seem to be a bit of an issue among a lot of Wales teams, that there does seem to be a lack of detail in attack. Where, where no matter what the level, a lot of us seem to struggle to get around the ball. I also compared it, but Wales would be very similar to with Georgia when they were first breaking through, so they were dominating sort of that second tier of Europe based on having a huge pack, and then as soon as other teams built up the pack, or they came up against tier one nations who all have good standard packs, they had to develop and evolve their game, because it just wasn't enough, and you just get sort of caught standing still. That being said, I thought Pearce and Tuipulotu were unbelievably good again, and I will keep saying it every time because they are always good.
I was surprised they came off when they did. So
I'm surprised Pearce didn't. I'm surprised Pearce didn't come off at all, because speaking of Lucette Props doing 80 minutes.
Sorry, I meant more Tuipulotu. Sorry, yeah, go on.
Yeah, I mean, let's be fair. The amount of work she went through, I'm not surprised. And she's still only 19.
It's bonkers, isn't it?
Yeah,
I wrote something the other day, and I was like, talking about the young players coming through. One player I'm really excited to see eventually is she's behind Caris Phillips and Kelsey Jones, two brilliant hookers, is Molly Reardon, because she's a converted scrum half. A year ago she's playing scrum half for Wales under 20s, which is just bonkers. And I spoke to her old coach, and she was full of praise of Lisa Newton, ex-Wales international. But the thing with Molly is she will be lining up when she does make her debut. If that is, she's likely to be lining up with Cecilia Tuipulotu, who's by then going to be a veteran of 3 Six Nations campaigns. It's like she's 19. It's bonkers, absolutely bonkers. But yeah, she's got a ceiling beyond belief, and then we talked about ceilings earlier.
The other thing I want to say is, because although we've got a mostly Gloucester Hartbury based team, when you think about some of the positions, and you're like, well, actually, the hooker's not. No, she is Gloucester Hartbury, but I think she's second choice, because I'm pretty sure Neve Jones is first choice at Gloucester Hartbury. Obviously, you have Mo Hunt at 9, and she does a lot of game control. Emma Singh at fullback, who also does the goal kicking. When you start breaking down, yes, it's a very good team, but actually, when you look at the spine, the very important bit, actually, you do have a lot of mismatches. So, obviously, Kira Bevan playing at Bristol probably is in a completely different system to her Lakey Georgia play. Akira Bevan, is so used to playing next to a 10 like Snowsill. Well, used to playing with Snowsill. I do think it is going to take a bit of time for that to mesh a bit properly. You promised us a rant on basically the same thing Dan promised to rant on in the Cardiff game. Do you just want to get on? Because obviously Wales women 2 points behind. They have the ball. It's gone into the red, and then we have a box kick.
Well, it goes back further, doesn't it? It goes to the start of the kickoff where Shaky George shapes the kick. So clearly the plan, it's almost as if Shaky George went to kick and then looked up at the score. Either she's decided to do a dummy kick, which would have been is amazing, but I don't quite back it. I think it was a case of, going through the motions, catch the ball, no, I can't kick, I've got to run because we're 2 points behind. But surely you're running back after missing the kick, and you're thinking, that's the first thought process is, how long's on the clock? We know it's near. Ref, how long's on the clock? How long's on the clock? What can I do here? And then you get back to your own 22. Everyone should be aware of how long is on the clock. And I'm going to use this. It was slightly amateurish, and not knowing how long is on the clock. And for a side that have praised themselves for their professionalism and how they've improved under the professionalism recently, that was a bit of a gap. And a lot of people are putting heat on Sian Jones. I just don't quite agree. She's a young scrum half making her debut at 19. Talking about 19-year-olds, she's another 19-year-old, and there are players. I won't dig them out, but there are players going into that ruck that have a lot more experience than her building a caterpillar ruck that should have been going, why are we doing this? We're 2 points behind. There's 10 seconds left, 5 seconds left. There should have been Shaky. There should have been Hannah screaming, no, give us the ball. No, give us the ball. And yeah, there's a lot of criticism on her. There's a lot of criticism on Johan Cunningham taking off Kira Bevan because Shaky George missed a kick. But I didn't quite get that. Shaky is a goal kicker, can goal kick. Yeah, maybe not as successful as Kira, but I thought Sian Jones, okay, yes, she made an error with that box kick, but bar that, her distribution is beautiful. What a pass she's got, a brilliant future she's clearly got. So all the narrative around that was bizarre, but it was a mistake by the team for not having a communication going into that restart. That you talk about set plays, it's the fourth set play or the third set play as they call it. The communication by the team was poor rather than any individual errors.
Yeah, but I feel like again though, similar to what we said about Cardiff, it's not it's not just that one area. I thought like we got cut out wide far too easily. I don't think we played in the right areas. I think Dan, I think it might be you tweeted it saying like, oh, we're finally playing to Lecky George's strengths and kicking the ball. It's one of those bad.
It took 30 minutes.
Arms Park, because I think it must be something to do with the Arms Park, because we all seem to be all the teams based in there seem to be doing it lately. Because I think under 20s had some moments like it as well. But
sorry, just wanted one final one. If Shaky had kicked that kick or Wales had gone the other side and scored the try, it would have masked what had been not the best performance. But I'm not saying not saying I want Wales to lose, but hopefully they will therefore do a proper review on what went wrong tactically, what went wrong performance-wise that meant they didn't win that game and didn't deserve to win that game, because they didn't deserve to win that game before those two moments. And those two moments have almost overshadowed what was a below-par performance.
I think that's the point, is that if Sian Jones doesn't kick that on the full, on the evidence of the previous 80 minutes of game, there is zero chance that Wales went up the other end and scored any points. They barely made 15 to 20 metres. I don't know if they made like a proper line break at all. There was absolutely no chance that we marched all the way up the field there. And to just agree with what Carwyn said, Sian Jones was fantastic for the rest of that game. Absolutely. I think it's the best passing action, men or women, I've seen. It's just like textbook, but she does it without trying. It's just perfect the way she fizzes off both hands, and she did it all the way through the Celtic Challenge as well for the Gwalia Lightning. I think she's actually a very special player, and that this kick will be long forgotten when she is potentially pushing Bevan next year to really take that 9 top, because Bevan's a cracking player as well.
Yeah, actually, I said it's quite nice when we've got a couple of scrum. I mean, to be fair, it's never going to be known as doing a Sian. It's because Hugh Griffin's just said it's doing a cowdoor. So I think that's definitely a Gareth Davis's name. Next up for Wales women, we take on the Red Roses at Ashton Gate. Quite looking forward to this one. I think it's my game. I think it's one of my games of the weekend. Or certainly one I highlighted. Realistically, what are we expecting? What would be a good result for Wales women?
Well, 48-0 with 14 players. They beat Italy in Italy. Just saying, like they are on different level. It's so difficult to give it like what is an achievement. I remember a couple of years ago Wales celebrating a try when they were 50 points down. It's just a different level. It's like watching Wales men play New Zealand back in the sort of 90s and early noughties. It is that equivalent. And any sort of any sort of positives from the game are brilliant positives, be it getting X amount of jackal penalties. There have to be, you've got to try and get small goals in the game. You know, people talk about KPIs and all this sort of thing. There's probably that for players in this game. You've got small goals to try and achieve, whether it be you beat your opposite player to three or four rucks in a succession, so you get that positivity, whether it be Shaky George kicks a 50-22 at some stage during the game, whether it be it has to be simple goals, because it is so difficult to win this game. I'm not saying, you know, they're not going to go in thinking we're going to lose, but practically it just is a different level, and everyone's aware of that. So yeah, it's going to be a tough one, to be honest, but fingers crossed they'll want to put in a better performance from last week, and that's the main thing, I think.
Yeah, I honestly think a good there's the interesting detail there from Carwyn, just on a really basic team level, no injuries and be able to train fully for 2 weeks going into the Ireland game. I think that's realistically where we are. They're going to get absolutely thrashed. England are an absolute machine. It's borderline unfair. I think if in the men's game, you talk about whether we should do relegation and that into the second. I honestly think English should be promoted and they should play nobody during the Six Nations. They should play themselves, because it's just unfair.
It's funny you say that, because obviously John Mitchell he announced that for these first 2 games he's doing 2 completely different 23s.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so certainly 2 different 15s.
Well,
So
that's messed up my fantasy women's rugby plans, isn't it? Back to the drawing board on that.
Just wait until go out. I mean, let's be fair, whoever they're chucking in, it's going to be good. I mean, the player who got red carded is probably a safe bet. She's not playing next week.
That was horrible. I'm glad they penalised that, by the way. That was an absolute horrible piece of play.
I'll be honest, I did miss it. I was driving back from Plymouth.
Oh, it's a croc. Well, it's an attempted croc roll, but she just falls straight down the back and lands straight on the back of her knee. And having seen Halaholo tweeting a video of something similar almost happening to him again the other week, because I don't actually think that croc roll in itself is illegal at the moment. But I think dropping all your body weight on the opposition's lower limb is, and that's exactly what she does.
If you target the lower limb,
yeah, and that's what she's ended up doing.
Yeah.
One bit of news, because of some of the rules they have suggested directly match it, but one of the good rules World Rugby is suggesting is just a straight up outlaw of the croc roll now.
Yeah, it's honestly it's an admittance from the clearing out player that they've absolutely bollocksed up their clear out, and that their only option is to sort of do this backup move. It's horrible.
Well, I mean, I don't think Ellis has been the same player since.
No,
as good as he's been. He's certainly not the heights he was in 2018. I know Jack Willis is another one who's said it. For me, the way the Wales went, so last time out we lost 59-3 and conceded 9 tries. Now, if reducing that gap, like the way I said in the pod last week that how good it was for Ireland to score a few tries and reduce their gap against France, I think it's the same thing here. I thought we were very competitive last year out for the first 30-35 minutes. If we can stretch that into the second half as well, that would be it. For me, I agree. I think we need to start George Evans, whether that is maybe as an option at 6, move it back to a route to second row, or in the second row, just having an extra physicality. Any other points do either of you two want to make on that? As time's running through, and I'm going to get an angry message from James about when they want to start playing a good player.
No, I am excited. Dan, just one last one, because Dan mentioned that Gwennon Hopkins is one hell of a talent. I just wanted to get that in quickly, just because. And I think the other day I compared it to Morgan Morse. I can't get it out of my head that it is just they are 2 of the exact same player just playing in slightly different teams. That's basically what's going on. That's all I wanted to say.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Carwyn, do you just want to do a quick Premiership rundown before we sign off?
Yeah, it would be quicker if I'd have prepared for it and done due diligence as a journalist. But I think, as we mentioned about Cardiff, it's going to be a case of trying to solidify that top 4 going into the remainder of the season. I think at the moment I do back them to get there. They're in a position where they should be strong, and they've got a 6-point advantage over Pontypridd and a game in hand over them as well. This weekend, the games start with Newport against Llandovery on Thursday night, which is a huge win, obviously, considering both are likely to meet each other. Well, as it stands, looks like possibly in a playoff final. Then you've got Pontypridd travelling to Carmarthen and Cardiff, big game at Aberavon. If Cardiff can win that, that's a good indicator that they could make the top 4. Merthyr are at home to RGC, and I'd expect them to get the win there, to be honest, because they're very strong at home in particular. But yeah, last week, some good results for Cardiff, obviously winning at home, even in a thriller, 38-33 against Swansea, and Merthyr getting a 36-34 win over Carmarthen, and Pontypridd winning. So all 3 won last week. So hopefully they can continue that to this weekend as well.
Excellent stuff. Right. So I said, as time is running short, just want to say thank you to my co-host Carwyn and for his debut, Dan Pearce. Thank you for joining me with this, both boys.
Cheers for having me.
Pleasure, boys.
And just the usual reminder to, if you enjoy the podcast, like, share, subscribe, check us out on YouTube. And as always, thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening to the Cardiff Central podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show. Please subscribe, rate and review wherever you listen to us, as it really helps spread the word. You can find us on all the usual social media channels or email us on welshregionalrugbypod@gmail.com. And remember, whatever the question is, rugby is always the answer.
Sports Social Podcast Network.